Hey, this is Mr. Mitchell with another 7th grade science video. On the screen you see some questions and it's about fungus or fungi. Let's see how fungi are different from viruses and bacteria. Fungi are eukaryotes. You may remember that bacteria are prokaryotes. Eukaryotes mean that their cells do have a nucleus. So fungi have nucleus or nuclei, and bacteria does not. They are also heterotrophs. Now you may remember that heterotrophs mean that they do not make their own food. So whenever you see like these mushrooms here, all around them in the forest floor would be plants. These are not plants. Plants make their own food, but a fungus does not make its own food. They have to feed upon things that make their own food, kind of like we are. We're heterotrophs also. And they are going to find more food in warm, moist places. So that's why you find fungi in warm, moist places. They need to be there to absorb their food, and they will end up using what's called spores to reproduce. So that's why you find them on moist foods like bread and, well, see this orange here. You might also find them on damp tree barks, and you might find them on wet bathroom tiles. These are fungus. Cells of most fungi, except yeast, are arranged in structures called hyphae. Hyphae, well, these are thread-like tubes. You can see these tubes going down through here underneath this mushroom. You can see all these thread-like tubes here. Actually, inside the stem are these thread-like tubes, and there's a close-up of the thread-like tubes here. These hyphae are the thread-like tubes, and they help the fungus eat. And this mushroom, for example, here can extend out these hyphae, or they grow kind of like a plant does, but even though it's not a plant, they extend out these tubes, and that will help them absorb what they need to as far as food goes. The fungus basically grows the hyphae into the food source. Now, this hyphae will end up oozing digestive chemicals to help itself consume the food. I guess it'd be kind of like our saliva would be. So hyphae would end up digesting by using something kind of like saliva, these digestive chemicals. Now, these fungi usually produce by what's called spores. Have a close-up picture of a fungus with spores right here. And you can see all these little bitty spores. And these spores are easily carried through the air and the water. So these little bitty spores fly off, and only a few of them will end up finding the right conditions to survive. Millions of them are produced, but only a few of them will find those right conditions. Now, technically, fungi can be produced both asexually or sexually. And remember, asexually, and it's a process called budding, is where the fungus turns out to be identical to the parent. It has only one genetic makeup. It's the parent that it comes from. And sexually would be where you have genetic material from two different spores or from two different fungi. Now, fungi are not all bad. I mean, whenever we think of viruses and bacteria and fungus, we think, ooh, it's bad. And you may have noticed from bacteria especially that it's usually not all bad. For example, You have yeast in bread. You have mushrooms on pizza and salad. Like bacteria, a fungus is also a decomposer, and decomposers are very helpful in our ability to not have dead things laying around everywhere. They break down the dead organisms, and there's something else that comes from a fungus that's very helpful. It's penicillin. You know, penicillin is a medicine that is used quite a lot in helping stop disease. Of course, there are some fungus or some fungi that are a little bit more like an annoyance or something that is not good for the host, kind of like you might say. There's something called athlete's foot, and I don't know if you're old enough to have had athlete's foot much yet, but has all kind of peeling and cracking, and sometimes it'll open up the skin like it did on this toe right here. But it's kind of an annoyance, and there are over-the-counter medicines that can kind of minimize that. But that comes from a fungus. And another fungus is ringworm. You may have had ringworm. It forms a spot like this, kind of a circular area that really itches a lot. And same thing, there's over-the-counter medicine that happens for those. Sure, there are some diseases that fungi can cause in plants and crops, but most of the time fungus is for humans an annoyance, like ringworm or athlete's foot. The deadly diseases are more for like plants and crops that are associated with a fungus. Now, there are the occasion where the fungus and the organism are mutually helpful. The hyphae often attach themselves to plant roots, and that helps the surface area of the plant roots for them getting a pathway, I guess, to getting more water. The plant and the fungi have extra soil that is around the hyphae and the roots, and that gives it more surface area, I think I had mentioned. There's also something here called a lichen. You can see this fungus right here along the side of this tree or post, whatever this is. A lichen has a mutualistic relationship, like we'd mentioned, with the tree behind it. It helps it, and it helps the tree. So lichens also grow on rocks, and they grow on tree barks, and they have that mutualistic relationship. Well, I hope you've learned a little bit about fungi.